I was going through my junk drawer the other day and I found an old taser that we used to have at our old apartment. And because it's actual electricity, I thought it might make for some pretty cool electricity source and some sort of sci-fi gun or whoosh or something. So I went on YouTube and just looked that up and ended up finding this really cool sniper rifle from Apex Legends with like a really cool wind up and charge up sound that I thought I could make good use in. In my last video, I made an explosion and I recorded everything from scratch or made everything out of a bass patch and phase plant or something like that, and I learned a lot from doing that, so I figured I'd give it another shot here as well. The first thing I focused on was trying to find stuff for the reload animation of the gun, so I grabbed like some Nerf guns, an airsoft pistol, and then just some other mechanical devices I have around the house, like a ratchet tightener for the rope or a digital camera, a pocket knife, just any sort of little metal objects I had around the house that I could shake and get the sort of clicks and clacks that I needed for the reload animation. After that, it was trying to figure out things I could record to make good electricity source. So I recorded a few servos from like a drill and also like a hair clipper, as well as some plastic recordings, and just I used some recordings from my last video as well, like the ramen smashing, the cardboard ripping, as well as the shower curtain, which did some work in this video as well, which I was happy for. And then the last thing was just some bullet recordings. I have a few bullets in that drawer over there I can use for the shell casing. So before we get into the actual sound design breakdown of the video, I just wanted to go over how I generated a bunch of these tonal sci-fi textures for the gunshots. So what I did is just imported all the recordings that I got from the video, and then I made a very long chain of just throwing a bunch of sound effects together until I got some cool sci-fi textures. So for example, without the effects on, here are some recordings. So that's just a little bit of the servo, and then that's just the plastic. And then after it goes through this effects chain, and all that is just OTT, flanger, another flanger, an exciter, Saturn 2 with like a default preset, R-bass, disperser, Unbic G, which is a granular pitch generator thing, which sounds pretty cool, M transformer, again just on one of the presets, frequency echo, manipulator, M granular just so it generates stuff after, and then R bass to give it some more low end. And then once you have these like sci-fi texture files, I like to throw them through different Doppler plugins. That way you can make different impacts and whooshes with them. So here I generated with that same exact effects chain some sci-fi textures. And if you take this sci-fi texture here and you add in just like a Doppler plugin like Traveler, you'll just get some cool whooshes. But more importantly, you can get impacts if you just change the shift shape right here. And so just going through that on all these different sci-fi textures, that's how I generated a lot of the like sci-fi tonal source that I'm going to go over later in the video. To go into the sound design recording, the first thing I'd like to start with is just a reload Foley. So soloed, it sounds like this. And all that is just a bunch of recordings of the box cutter, stapler, camera, Nerf gun, and air pistol. You can see over here on the track names. And I didn't really do too much to it outside of that. Like if I solo one of these, here's like the airsoft pistol. And really that's just me holding the airsoft pistol. And then I just slam it with OTT, sorry, and then a little bit of Saturn saturation, and then just a little bit of EQ. So it's really just about the timing, not a whole lot of processing on it. And then on the master track, I just did some more processing, which includes an imager to make sure we bring it down to world space, a transient shaper, just cleaning up some of the low end with a EQ filter, and then OTT again. Don't be afraid to put a lot of instances of OTT onto your Foley recordings. Outside of that, the Nerf gun was really effective here as far as making the sound like from the cartridge of the magazine. That was really helpful for this. And then outside of that, it's just a lot of the airsoft pistol. One thing I did want to mention with the airsoft pistol recording is all I did was like squeeze it as hard as I could to get some of these like just sort of like squeaks and clicks and things. After that, I have a few sweetener layers for the reload, which sound like this. And all that is just, if I solo this here, all that is it is this muted file down here at the bottom, which originally, so that's just hair clippers, and then I ran it through Uzu, Saturn, and then Morph. Morph is a really cool VST that can just make nice sci-fi sounding textures pretty much out of everything. Highly recommend that. That's from Stepwise. You should be able to find it online. And then after that, I just printed it out because Morph has a tendency to mess up and not stay consistent with how it affects the sound. So I just printed it out. And I did the same thing here. Again, that's just probably another servo. Yep. And then I just ran it through Uzu, Morph, and Saturn, printed it out to get a nice texture here. And then this one, again, that's just Morph again. And then I have the Taser recordings, they're just completely naked, which just had some nice pops, because if you look at the video here, there's a little bit of an electric shock that plays whenever he reloads it, so I wanted to represent that with the Taser. Then I just have like a nice digital click, and I believe I just generated that from, and all that is just a wavetable with a random oscillator going through a filter table, and then I just have a comb filter, ensemble, and then a ring filter I turned off, and then I just play to just get some nice like digital spectral confirm sounds. That just kind of gives it a little extra there. And then for like the cable sounds of him grabbing the cable, first, before I go into this is the sweetener layer. If I go down here, this is the cable. So this is just me recording a leather jacket and then also squeezing my rubber sandal. Both of these I recorded in my last video, so I just had them on file. So it's really nothing crazy. It's just different rubber and leather stress sounds. And then the sweetener layer, which is up here, sounds like this. And that was generated from a phase plant patch, which I call Arc Machine here. And the Arc Machine is just like a simple effects chain I have here. So without any effects, it's just the cardboard rip sounds. I had that left over from the explosion session, and then I just added OTT, an instance of Snap Peep, which I'll go over in a second, and then another instance of OTT at the bottom. The Snap Peep session is real simple. It's just an ensemble, disperser, and Haas, a comb filter, and then another filter table that's being randomly oscillated through, or morphed through the wavetable, so it just creates a nice texture. And then also you can run that through something like Traveler here to get some nice Doppler effects with it as well. So once I had that, that's just the cable sweetener noise. And then quickly before I move on to the actual gunshot sound, just the bolt action reload is a lot of the same thing that I just went over, so it sounds like this. And all that is just a bunch of the stapler recordings, air pistol, which is the airsoft pistol, the box cutter, the camera, the metal sliding thing, and the metal tap. To solo a few of the layers, it's just a lot of the stapler. And then some like slidey layers from the digital camera and that metal ratchet thing that I found. And then finally just a nice metal tap to give it a bit of a sheen. at the end there. And then these are the bullet recordings that I did with the bullets falling on the table. And then I just duplicated it. And then the effects chain on this is just a imager R bass to bring out a lot of these mid frequencies, well, mid lows, I guess. And then 2 instances of OTT, just destroying it pretty much to bring out all the dynamics I can, because there's a lot going on with the gunshot, so it's kind of hard to hear. Moving on past that, past the leather cable, now we can kind of get into the initial ramp up sound for the cable spinning. So the first thing that we have is a bit of the cardboard rip here. Oh, sorry, that's not the cardboard rip. That is the plant molder. It just named it weird. So if I go into faceplant over here, I just needed a sound for the barrel that spins. Just like a nice mechanical sound. So to make that really quick, so all I did was import some of the metal taps into this faceplant patch here. And then all I did was automate the sample length going down on a ramp, so it would slowly get faster over time. And that's how I got the mechanical like spinning sound, and then I just have it pitch shift going up, which is what this little like ramp is. And it looks like it had some effects on it, but I ended up not using it. And then after that, I would just have a little bit of this like power up sound that has a automated tremolo going up. It has inconvolution EZ on it to give it some space, an imager to control its stereo width, a tremolo, which we controlled the envelope of here on the rate, and then I'm just boosting up with some gain. So the power up sound, real simple. And all it is a wavetable with a LFO that's going through the frame, as well as turning up the pitch here. Then I just have some random properties on a filter table, and I have it running through an ensemble, phaser, flanger, and chorus. And that's how I made this power up sound without any effects. And then with the effects. Another part of the power up sound would be this right here. This is one of the Sci-Fi impacts that I generated. And it's just a reverse Sci-Fi impact. If I go here, you should see it is just one of these impacts. And that sounds like it's probably coming from the arc thrower patch. So again, that's just the arc thrower sample here. And then I just put it in Traveler and then change the shape right here so it can create impacts. And then I put it in here and reversed it. And then here is just the taser as well, just for a little bit of the taser buildup. After that, it looks like I also added a little bit of the rubber sound. And then we have the initial Sci-Fi impact hit, which is here. So this has a few different layers to it. And again, these are just the different Sci-Fi impacts that I generated from this arc thrower or arc machine sound patch with the snap heap, and then just running a bunch of samples through it, just random stuff. Here's like the plastic bag crinkle effect, and it's just going through with that impact on Traveler. And I just was able to make a bunch of these like impact sounds. And that's where all of these came from. And then this specific high frequency sound came from this boy right here. So it's just another one of those impacts, and then I ran it through, I just cut off all the lows, ran it through Morph to give it some high end. That's just a really fun plugin to play around with, and then gave it some volume. And then after that, it turns out nice and high pitched. After that, here at the bottom, we have a little bit of the energy sound for when the gun is running and is charged up. Before I jump into that, I do have this faceplant arc cardboard patch again, just hitting again. So it's just that arc thrower thing, but with a really, really fast tremolo. I keep saying arc thrower because that's a gun in Helldivers 2. Without any effects, and then just a fast tremolo effect. So that's a little bit in the charge up sound as well. And then again, we just have this motor sound that is named wrong, going up in pitch. And then here, just wanted a little bit of the electricity sound. So the way I got this, if we take off the effects, now all that is, if we go over here to, okay, so all that sound is just another one of the very long sci-fi effects that I have. So this is another thing I forgot to film me recording. But this is just my fingernail on a like rain jacket. And then I'm just running it through that same patch again from the Sci-Fi generator. The only difference is at the very end of the patch, I just have on spin tracer on this liquid debris setting. And then once I had that, all I did was throw it through, get rid of the low end with a filter, use this Unbic G thing to make it sound electricity E, and then lower the stereo image. And then I have, again, this is that faceplant arc machine without any effects. So it's just that going up in pitch with Reaper time modulation. If you don't know how to do that, it's just if I go to part of the sample. For me, if I Control-Alt-click, you can time stretch the samples in Reaper Live. And then after that, I just ran it through a simple effects chain, just trying to play with it and make it sound cool. Tremolo, flanger, phaser, Moonbic again, Saturn, and then an imager just to bring down the stereo image a little bit. And then here I'm just automating that tremolo going up. After that, we kind of come to the gunshot sounds themselves, and then we should be done. So before the gunshot, I like to have these nice tonal lead up layers. So first would be these boys right here. So this right here is just one of the Sci-Fi impacts, cut off really tight. So nothing crazy. And then here, I have it below. So all I did, it's just one of these Sci-Fi whooshes. Naked, it sounds like this. And then I just ran it through flanger, manipulator, a filter, frequency shifter, Saturn, a tremolo, ripple phaser, and then a convolution reverb just to place it. And then I printed it out just because I was getting some different variants on the different takes that I did. So I printed it out and then just put it up here. So that's the build-up sound. And then on the build-up sound itself, I just have Haas to give it some stereo width again. Now for the actual impact of the gunshot, I'm going to start off with the tonal elements first, and then I'll go into like the bass gunshot sounds themselves. So for the tonal elements, I have a few different Sci-Fi impact layers, and then I just did a bunch of plug-in spam until I got some cool sounding stuff. So the first layer I have sounds like this, which again is just one of those Sci-Fi textures ran through Traveler with the shift so it creates an impact. And then I just put on a filter in Saturn. Then I have Tonal Traveler, which sounds like this. So all that is I started with, and then I ran it through Traveler, and then Serum Effects with this hyper dimension thing that is kind of like an ensemble, but it just sounds pretty cool. And then a phaser. This next file here is like super destroyed, but by itself, it's just another one of those Sci-Fi impact. And then I threw on a few different plugins, including Rift, Saturn 2, Filter, this noise to ratio thing to bring out more tonal elements, Fresh Air trying to add back in some of that high end, Saturn 2 just to boost the frequency that I want, and then Haas to make it wide. And then after I had these layers, I just duplicated this and ran it through the bottom to try to make the reverb tail. Okay, and all that is naked. These files just sound naked. So again, that's just another one of those sci-fi explosions. And then I ran it through a long plug-in chain, rift again on floor shedder, Saturn II, another filter, M ratio, fresh air, Unbic G processor again, convolution reverb with this boom library impulse response pack, and then just a filter again to bring out the high end, and then ROM to give it some real reverb space. And then these layers down here. So that's just that again, except I ran it through a filter and then Slapper ST to give it a bit of a realistic delay. Really, really good for gun sounds. And then another convolution. So I do a lot of the same thing, but just with different files. So it creates a nice... Then again, same exact plugin chain as before, but just delayed with slightly different settings. And that's what the tonal layer sounds like by itself. And then to get into the actual gunshot itself, so I did add a little bit of that taser as well in the lead up. And then after that, I have this metal slider sound for my mech layer on the gunshot. So that's real simple, just that ratchet, and then pumped up the mid frequencies here, a little bit of the highs as well. And then for the gunshot itself, so it's always good to have two impacts where you can with your gunshots. This works really well with linear media where you have a lot of control over what's going on. It's a little bit harder in like dynamic game audio. So the individual layers sound like this. So that's just the shower curtain, but beefed up with Saturn II, filter, OTT, L2 for some gain increase, bloom just to bring out the low end, a transient shaper, a clipper, and then Saturn II again. Then we have the wrench from like a toolbox, the metal gate slamming shut just for some high end, nothing crazy, just really boosting that high end there. Then we have the shower curtain again, Saturn, a little bit of filtering and a clipper. Then here, shower curtain again, which I was actually pretty happy with this one. I think that sounds pretty close to a gunshot. Naked, it just sounds like Saturn II, Q3 filter, OTT, L2, bloom, convolver, transient shaper, a clipper, then Saturn II again. This is me tapping on my toolbox after I got the wrench out. And then I just added in Saturn II, just super destroying the low end, adding more low end, adding a transient shaper, and then after that is just this RX declick trick. So all that is, if you just take any sound really, and then add in declick, and then output clicks only. Then finally another shower curtain. And all that is just Saturn completely destroying the dynamics, and then 3 instances of disperser. And then for the tail is always the most hard when it comes to recording everything yourself, because there's nothing that really makes up for like recording real gunshots and getting that nice crack reverb sound. But I did my best. So it sounds like this by itself. So all that is, here is the shower curtain. I have this hit here. It's just that shower curtain. And then I ran it through this effects chain, which is just Saturn II, Q3, bloom, convolver, transient shaper, and a clipper. And then I really liked how the end of that sounded. It sounded kind of like the reverb tail of a gunshot. So then I just printed it out. And then I ran it through R-Bass again, bringing up the low end with a filter, radiator, and then Slapper ST. Then I have the shower curtain again. And by itself, that's just the shower curtain pitched down. I ran it through Saturn, digital drum compressor, Saturn again, fab filter doing some crazy stuff, bloom, Saturn II again, filter cleaning up some low end, and then just Slapper again to give it that nice delayed tail. And then finally, we just kind of have this flangey, echoey thing that doesn't really come out too much in the mix, but so that's just a shower curtain again, but I just ran it through a filter, flanger, rift on this preset setting, MB ratio to get some of the noise out, and then a convolution, response, reverb. And then finally, to give it some more tail at the very end, I just ran it through, this is one of the plastic bags from the last recording. And it's just super, super pitched down. And then I think I have some like the rain stick from the last recording, but then I ran it through Saturn, digital drum compressor, Saturn again, a weird EQ tail, convolution, response, reverb, and then gain. But yeah, that should be about it. This one was really fun to make. It had a lot of challenges, but I think it turned out pretty well. The original one also sounds really cool, so definitely check out Apex Legends. This is a really great animation. They always do a great job with those, but thanks for watching.